Welcome back to SixSigmaTV.net. My name is Jeff Gray. I'm going to take you on the White Belt course overview of what are called waste in your process and also defects in your process. It's going to give you a good understanding of what those two concepts are. Now you might hear the term the 7 types of waste. That's one term under the waste category. Also there's a term called Muda, M-U-D-A. And let's look at that one first, otherwise sometimes known as the 7 types of waste. And these are the things you want to look for in your process when you're mapping out your process, when you're gathering your data. These are the kind of things you want to categorize and take data on so you understand how it's impacting your process and how much waste you really have in that system. So the first one here, Muda, there's 7 things you want to look at. The first one is waiting or idle time in your process. Are you searching for things? Are you harvesting files? Are you waiting for files, waiting for signatures? All of those kinds of things there fall under the waiting or idle time in your process. Correction is the next one. Rework or scrap, doing the same job more than once, reworking, repairing, all of those kind of things. Correcting, reworking, and scrap are known as the correction step in the Muda category. The next one, transportation, excessive travel distance. Due to poor layout of your process, your organization is usually the reason why you're going back and forth looking for things, transporting things here, going back over there, walking around your organization, out to the printer, back and forth to the fax. Excessive travel, multiple handoffs, those kind of things are your transportation. Your setup time, long times to change over between different products or families, different types of service. What is that changeover time or setup time? Over processing, are you making more things than you need to? Are you processing more things than your customer expects? Because of tolerance or just in case, inventory, those type of things. So you're over processing, doing more than what is needed in that day. Excessive motion, your ergonomics of your workstations, excessive forms, paperwork, and also storage and inventory. Those are excessive inventory and our movements of information or materials. Those are known as your storage or your warehousing waste. The other two under the types of waste, these are very simple. One is called Mura, M-U-R-A. The other is called Muri, M-U-R-I. Now, Mura is what's known as an abnormality or an unevenness or a fluctuation of the schedule of the process. Variation and unbalance in your daily task. Could be bottlenecks and those types of things and the uneven and unbalanced workflow. And the next one is Muri, strain or stress or an overburden of your people or your equipment. Are you pushing things too hard? You're driving a forklift and it only should hold 3,000 pounds or less and you've put 5,000 pounds on it. Why are you doing that? That's adding strain or stress to your equipment. That's called Muri. A simple thing to help you understand the types of waste and where they're occurring in your process are by using this chart here, which is called the spaghetti chart. Here you can see we lay out the office or the environment that you work in, and you just put numbers of how many times you go and travel around this location. You start at number 1. How many times did you go to number 2? Then you went to number 3, back to number 4, over here halfway across the organization to number 5. This will help you with your layout. This will help you with reducing your travel time, increasing your RTY, eliminating all that waste of motion, those types of things in your process. It'll help you identify places where you need to gather data also in your process. The things you want to look for once you do a spaghetti chart or any kind of process map is look at the 3 types of value-added or non-value-added information in your process. The thing you want to look at is the green one here, which is your customer value-added. Any step in a process that is essential to deliver the service to the customer, it must be performed to meet the customer needs. Think of it in this term is that it's something the customer is willing to pay for. If they knew you were doing this function, they would pay you for that. If they knew you were doing some of these other functions and they ask you, why are you doing that? It's not adding any value to your service or product. Those are the things you want to get rid of. The orange, business value added. Sometimes we have regulations, legal things that we have to do in order to get the product or service out. You want to reduce this as much as possible, the one in orange here. And the fuchsia one is non-value added. Those are the things, your rework, the 7 types of waste in your process, all of those things are not adding any value to your product or service. this is what you want to eliminate first. You want to get rid of this. You want to do everything that is value added, or you want to do the things that are absolutely necessary that are your business value added. This chart here is a simple chart you can do once you do your spaghetti diagram, and you look and identify the value added and non-value added steps in your process. It'll let you see where the waste is occurring in your process and where you need to focus your attention to eliminate that waste. If you notice here in this chart, there's only a few steps that are green. A lot of processes are like this, especially when you begin using Six Sigma and Lean Six Sigma. You'll notice you might have 5, 10, 15% of value added or business value added activities, and the rest is that non-value added activity. And you want to squeeze that as much as possible and turn this as green as possible as you can. Now let's change notes here for a second and let's look at what is a defect. A defect is also a type of waste in your process. A defect definition is any type of undesirable result is a defect. Anything that creates havoc, chaos, rework, something the customer is not going to accept because it doesn't work right or is not the information on a report, that is known as a defect. A defect is a failure to conform to requirements. That comes from Dr. Crosby there in his book, Quality is Free. Whether or not those requirements have been articulated or specified. Sometimes we don't even know what the customer expectations are, and we're creating defects. So we want to make sure that we understand anything that is a non-conformance to intended usage requirement is a defect. Now, you might have a product that also is defective. It might need a couple defects on it before it's defective. Let's say you buy a car, it has a couple scratches. Those are defects. It's not a defective car, it still runs. Let's say your transmission breaks, you have a flat tire, the engine blows, now you have a defective product. See the difference? You can have multiple defects before your product becomes defective. So it describes an entire unit that fails to meet the accepted criteria. Regardless of the number of defects, sometimes it's user defined or customer defined, but an item that is defective can have multiple defects before it becomes defective. So keep that in mind. Another thing we want to look at, I'm not going to go through this whole calculation here. When you're starting out your projects, you want to look at what's called defects per million opportunities. We'll go into this formula later on in the Greenbelt course. We have software that'll help you do this. But just keep in mind when you're starting out a project and you're trying to identify the number of defects in your process, you'll want to use this formula down here, which helps you understand your defects per million opportunities. And this is how you get your Sigma levels and those types of things. And there's software out there that'll help you do this. So I'm not going to go through the formula, but what you want to look at is having as few defects per million opportunities as possible in your process. And next we're going to talk about white belt roles and responsibilities here at SixSigmaTV.net, so stay tuned for the next segment. Thank you.